Alright, so hello. I'm Lee from Lonely Freedom. How are you guys today?
Good.
Good.
How about you? You already answered.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm glad you're doing pretty well. So, Megan and James, what I'm doing here today then is interviewing some people that have traveled. You guys are the first ones I'm interviewing. And I would like to just get to know a little bit about you guys and exactly your motivations for traveling and what kind of things you look for, likes and dislikes, stuff like that.
Okay.
So can you just give me some general information about yourself?
Sure. You should
Just-
start.
Like what?
Like what you do, are you just, regular people? Do you do anything exciting for your jobs? Is traveling part of your job?
No, I'm an accountant.
An accountant?
Yeah.
All right, so regular 9 to 5 job then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Monday through Friday.
Do you get a lot of vacation time?
Yeah, 3 weeks.
3 weeks? That's pretty
yeah,
good.
it's pretty good.
How about yourself?
And I work retail, so it's kind of a varying schedule. Every other weekend, sometimes nights, but I get about 2 weeks vacation, which is great.
So do you guys use this vacation then to like visit family?
No.
No? You
No.
see your family enough?
Yeah.
All right. So you guys do like to use it for traveling then?
Yes.
Yes.
When did you guys start traveling? And by traveling I mean like out of state.
Out of state.
Mm-hmm.
First we went to California in
2010.
2010.
All right.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's
So that was your
kind of
first,
our
like, kind of
yep.
like big trip.
Yep.
How was that experience for you?
Pretty good. Really liked California. Way different than here.
Speaking of here, what kind of likes and dislikes do you have about Minnesota? Would you say?
Well, I don't like the cold in the winter,
Mm-hmm.
but I think everybody's like that.
I like
Well, with the winter especially, it's more or less, yeah, it's cold, but some of the conditions, the roads, the snow, it gets kind of hard to get out and do some activities
I
that you
like
might
the
want to
snow because I could do stuff in the snow,
Mm-hmm.
but when it's 20 below, I can't. So,
do.
Okay.
You feel like you're
Yeah.
cooped up in the house
Yeah.
for 6 months.
you really do.
All right, so I got it. No snow, don't like it. But
Yeah.
what do you like about Minnesota?
Ugh, everything else. I mean, we've got all these lakes and trails and parks and places to go. And, yeah, it's just cool.
What kind of attitude would you
Culture.
say it's? Would you say it's like high tempo, low tempo, relaxed, people friendly, uptight? Like,
People are generally pretty friendly, kind of laid back, I think.
I would say the tempo is right in the medium.
Yeah.
It depends, I guess, by the city, but in general, I can speak for myself. I've lived in a few states before I came to Minnesota, and it's pretty well tempered. You can go, in the city, you can go in the rural areas, and the feeling is kind of the same. Like, we're all Minnesotans, we all have similar interests, but yeah, everyone's been kind of friendly, and at least from my
I
perspective.
don't know, I think the interests are kind of getting a little farther apart between city folk and
okay.
rural areas.
Rural areas.
I think more.
And where do you guys live?
Outside of the city.
But not,
Chaska, Minnesota.
Urbanish.
but not quite rural.
No, more urban.
So you guys are kind of like right in the middle.
Yeah, we're kind
You
of
can
in the
share
middle.
in both kinds.
Yep,
Alright.
exactly.
Now, have your likes and dislikes, have they influenced, like, your decision to travel to certain places? Was that why you went to California, because it was so different?
Yeah, and I'd never really seen the ocean, and I wanted to go see the ocean, and I'd been to the East Coast,
Mm-hmm.
so I wanted to go to the West Coast, and it's kind of where you go, California.
Okay. Did you like it better or worse, or was it just different than home?
Different. I mean, I don't know, we were there for like a week.
Mm-hmm.
How do you really know what a place is going to be like in a week,
Okay.
But, I mean, it
Understandable.
was gorgeous, beautiful. People were different, though.
People were different, and for me, I think more or less I wanted to try some of the different cuisine on the West Coast. It's a little different than what we can get here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can get it. You got to spend some money in the higher end restaurants in Minneapolis, but again, to me, it felt like just another state. I was still in America. It felt pretty much like home, only just the scenery was different.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was kind of like a gradual increase of difference, adventure,
Right.
and whatnot. Okay. What was your next trip after that?
Costa Rica.
Costa Rica. That's quite a bit different.
It is very much.
So it sounds like you started off like on training wheels and all of a sudden went straight to like a motorcycle.
Yeah,
Yep.
pretty much. Pretty much.
All right. Now tell me a little bit about Costa Rica.
Oh, beautiful place. Just an awesome place.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's because it was our first place out of our country. I don't know if that's why I enjoyed it so much, but I mean, I've talked to other people who have been there and they just absolutely love it. The people are amazing, so friendly, so nice. I mean, just awesome. And the scenery, everything. Oh, gorgeous.
So in Costa Rica, were you in a more urban or rural area, would you say?
We did both.
We had a mixture.
Yeah.
We stayed in 3 different cities. 2 of the towns were kind of smaller, I guess you could call. The first one was almost rural. It was kind of like a small beach town, which was fun.
Okay.
Second town we stayed in was another kind of beach town, but it was kind of a bigger
Well, it was.
city.
Yeah, we stayed outside of the city a little bit, but we were in the city a few times, and that was, I mean, it was much bigger. It was, I don't know how to compare
A lot
it.
more populated.
Yeah, and then the third place we stayed was kind of in the middle, bigger town, not really.
That was up in the mountains. That was
Yeah.
fun.
What was the biggest difference that you saw between the the city and outside of it?
I think, I mean, the biggest difference right away I saw was just access to certain things. When we were in the first town, it felt like a really small community. Everything you needed was right there. You had a couple restaurants, some shops, and then some homes, and then a lot of just open land, which was fun. The second city that we stayed in, it was a bit more commercial. So there were some nightclubs, some bars, different shops, resorts, things like that.
More
So
tourists.
very touristy,
Yeah.
almost. And then the third town, well, again, like I said, was kind of in the mountains. It felt kind of like the first one, a little bit bigger, a little more restaurants, but it was still a lot of open space, more countryside, which was kind of neat.
So what was the kind of stuff you concentrated on while you were there? I'm assuming you only had a couple weeks since your vacation time is only like 2 or
Yeah,
so
we went
weeks.
for 10 days.
Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to go and do kind of adventurous stuff, so a lot of hiking. We went zip lining. We did ATVing. What else did we do?
We did some hiking by the waterfalls, right?
Yeah.
It was just a lot of just taking in the scenery, taking in the food, trying to embrace the culture. It was, for me, I mean, both of us really, it was the first kind of bigger culture, I guess, experience that we've had.
So what aspects of the culture did you try to, I guess, not integrate yourself, but try to learn about, try?
When we first got there, once I got kind of planted after the first couple days, I mean, I guess I knew this a little bit going into it, but Costa Rica is really environmental friendly, and they have initiatives all across the country to maintain that. And so for me, it was more or less, while I was enjoying the environment, checking out these different parks, keeping that in mind, and trying to see how they do it. And they've had these rainforests for years, and they're just in tip-top shape. So I think that was one thing that really stood out to me that I felt, I could bring home and kind of try and utilize here.
Okay.
You know?
All right. What was your most memorable moment?
I would say either zip lining or ATVing.
Yeah.
They were both really awesome. Although we went on a coffee plantation tour.
Mhm.
That was really cool too. Learned a lot.
I would have to say that definitely the four-wheeling for me, because we had a tour guide, but it was just one guy and us. And we went a little bit through the city, but then we went up towards the mountains. And there are some smaller dirt roads. One side you could see a valley, the other side you see some farmland, but it's really like you're taking in the countryside. You're elevated, so you get to see everything at once and just be out in the open. That was a lot of fun. We stopped at a little, I guess it was kind of like a little restaurant that he knew about. just for like a quick lunch, and we got to talk a little bit, ask him some questions about his life in Costa Rica, and then continue the tour. But that was, I think, one of my favorite moments there.
It's pretty cool. So it sounds like a mixture of activities and scenery. You said you talked to someone over there. Did you talk to very many locals?
Not a whole lot, but like I said, when we stopped to have lunch with the guy, just basic questions, like how his life was like in Costa Rica, what he liked about the country, and we were just trying to make a basic connection. Like for us, we would talk about the U.S. and Minnesota and what we like to do here, and how the outdoors was a big part of our life. And it was the same thing for him. He loved the countryside. He loved showing new people the countryside, and just connecting. I think that was the biggest piece we got out of it. At least I did. It's a very, I guess, integrated culture. I mean, not just with Costa Ricans, but like anybody that comes to visit, they were really cool about it. Wanted to invite you in, be a part of it, so that was really neat.
So that's pretty cool. You guys actually found some common ground and made a connection like that.
Yeah.
Then I guess how did that change when you came back to Minnesota? Were you constantly thinking about it? Did you integrate things that you learned there? Were you a little bit more? Pretty much, how did that trip affect your life back home?
I think quite a bit. It was the first time I was ever out of the country, ever really seeing a different culture or the way other countries run. I mean, just the differences in that alone is kind of crazy. I mean, you always hear about, how many different laws and rules we have in the U.S. And, I mean, Costa Rica just seemed completely different. I mean, yeah, there's rules you gotta follow, like normal, obvious things, but it's nothing like here. And so it kind of felt a little, more like you couldn't do anything, and like, oh, why can't I just go do this? Well, because we're not allowed to do it. Like, we went, when we went ATVing, you can just ride down the street with all the other cars, and nobody cares. It's a little crazy, it's a little scary, but you can do it, and I don't know. It's just so different to come back, and
Felt like we had a lot of, I mean, growing up in the States, you just learn to accept the laws and the rules as they are. That's just our life. But then visiting Costa Rica and seeing how, I mean, they're free like us. They don't have a military. They've been surviving without one for years, decades. It's very communal, very open. And then coming back to the U.S., you just really realize all the regulations we have. And, some of them make sense. Some of them you kind of rethink. But,
it's like, some of the regulations sometimes seem obvious, but you go to a different country and it's like, well, it's not like people run around and do those things all the time. I mean, people still use, their brain on, okay, yeah, that sounds like a good idea or not. Whether we have a rule that we're not supposed to do it, we just know better, and it works. And I think you just feel a little more calm and laid back and not, happier. You're just...
It sounds like you're feeling more restricted back home after visiting Costa Rica. Now, what influenced you then to go there in the first place?
I'm not really sure. I just, like I said, I've never been out of the country. I'd been to a couple different states around Minnesota mostly, and I don't know. I just had this want to just
Costa Rica in particular, it was a matter of, like she said, we were trying to figure out somewhere to go outside the States, and a lot of it came down to pricing and affordability. And we combined that with the locale. It was obviously a different country, but it was Central America, so it would be kind of warmer. And we started looking into more of the things we could do there, different regions, all the adventure activities we could do. There was something for everyone there, no matter what age, gender, or anything. So it was really cool.
Stuff that we can't do here, like I said. I mean, we can go rent a 4-wheeler, but not nearly as much as fun. You can't really go ziplining through a rainforest. There's no coffee plantations. You can't go kayak in the ocean. I mean, we don't have any of that stuff around here.
Now, did this trip or experiences afterward influence your next trip? And this is something I know a little bit about.
Yeah, different things. I mean, it was our first time out of the country. One thing that definitely we figured out was how to pack. When we went to Japan on our next trip, we were there for 15 days. You know, we packed one backpack each. That was it.
How many packs did you have for Costa Rica?
I believe we had 3. We both had a bag, satchel, and then a smaller kind of carry-on size luggage. And we were only there for 10 days.
So you learned that you could live without certain items then?
Oh, completely.
Oh,
Completely.
what was a item that you found that you wouldn't bring again on a trip?
I think didn't we pack some food?
Yeah,
a
we
little bit.
packed some food, and it was like, what was the point of that?
And when we got to Costa Rica, we
We wanted to eat all their food.
ate their food. We went to the market. They had little grocery stores, little
Everywhere.
shops there. And you
I
just
mean,
buy
that's
what you
what's
need.
fantastic. That's another thing that's fantastic about other countries. The access. I mean, the closeness, the convenience. I walk down the street in Japan, just down the block, and there's going to be something, a little, 7-Eleven I can go to. Same in Costa Rica, a little market, block or 2 away. I have to go, at least 2 miles to get to the closest one. And that's actually pretty decent. 2 miles.
I know, but it sounds like, oh, really? 2 miles? Just to get to our grocery store back home?
When you think about it, it's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you don't need a car. There's public transportation. It's just, the way we live here just seems so strange now. Honestly, kind of go.
But as far as influencing the next trip, I think we experienced a lot of the adventure stuff that we wanted to, and we took in some of the culture. With the Japan one, it was, I guess, somewhere on our list of places to travel in our lifetime. And we happened to, know somebody in town that we wanted to go visit. That helped a lot too. But that one, I think, was a little bit more along the lines of embracing a different culture. I wasn't necessarily seeking adventure like I was in Costa Rica. I wanted to see the Japanese way of life. I wanted to see, again, the scenery. It's a different country. And just kind of see what that was all about.
So it sounds like your motivation for traveling changed between the first outer country trip to the second one. So it was less based on activities, but more on cultures, talking with people, and seeing how people live then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I guess you've mentioned a couple times that your next trip was Japan. How is that different from Costa Rica then?
A lot. Costa Rica is, Central America. It's not as far advanced, maybe as America or definitely Japan. Japan is more in line with the U.S. in that regard, with just technology and transit and all that, at least where we went.
Mm-hmm. Where did you go in Japan?
We went to Tokyo. We flew into Tokyo, and then we went north to Misawa and Hirosaki. Yep, in that area.
So you're saying the areas you were at, the technology was fairly high. What was the difference then between Tokyo, which we all know is like the main big city, and Misawa, which is kind of a much smaller, like almost a farming community, and Hirosaki is kind of a rural city, correct?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Technology-wise?
Not just technology-wise, but just
overall
differences in general.
Well, day one, we fly into Japan, and we take a train through the city
Crazy
from the
city.
airport to downtown Tokyo, which was awesome, by the way. That was the first time I've been on
Very cool.
big train like that. But going into the city, you see skyscraper buildings everywhere. Residential buildings everywhere. It's just every block is filled with something. Power lines all over the place, and you hear about that too, the big grid, and you could see that. But it's when we got into the city, it's huge. There's lights everywhere. There's shops everywhere. People everywhere. It was just kind of a I guess I've never been to a really big city in the U.S., not even like New York or anything. But it was just like, wow, this is impressive. But again,
Like, I know they say New York never sleeps, but I kind of wonder about Tokyo.
so it was really
Thinking they
neat to
don't
see.
sleep much. It's a very bustling city.
It was a very bustling city, no matter what time of day.
Yeah.
Then we made it up to Umsaw, and it was a little different feel. I mean, the first thought that came into my mind, even though it's Japan, different area, just different in many ways, it felt like Minnesota almost. I mean, there was a little bit more of a connection. It was rural, a lot of farmlands, smaller towns, but it
Still had, like your like downtown area where there's commercial and shops and restaurants and such. But not as compact, not as many people, just seemed more laid back, more, maybe a little more friendly.
Now, Japan has a reputation for being, let's say, quirky. Do you think Japan lived up to that reputation?
Quirky?
Yeah.
I would say so.
Yeah, I think so. I saw some different things.
Like what, for example?
Well, I mean, a big thing is kind of the younger generation in Japan, how they dress.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of like, wow, okay, that would never happen back home. Ever. Not even nice weather, and just, I don't know.
All right.
I guess
Different things you see that you can purchase or that are going on,
Yeah.
I mean,
All right.
yeah.
Then what would be your most memorable moment in Japan?
Japan. Well, going out in the town in Tokyo was quite memorable for me. We went to the restaurant. I ate a fish head. It was amazing. Never thought I would eat a fish head, but it was fantastic.
it was really good.
I actually crave it now.
Sushi was
It's
amazing.
ridiculous. Ramen. Eating real ramen changed my life, I think. Changed my life right there. Noodles.
Can't go back.
No, I can't. It's awful. We can't get good food like that here. I mean, not true Japanese food. I miss that.
It's fresh.
Definitely. Not as fresh.
I think for me, I really did enjoy that first night in Tokyo. That was my first impression. But I think still my favorite moment, absolute favorite moment, was when we were in Hirosaki. We went up for a couple days, took the train to get there, and stayed in a little hotel in town. There was this little place called Bar Grandpa. It was the coolest. It
really
reminded me
was.
of like a little English pub. It was really dark inside with some nice dark oak finish.
Not that we know what an English pub is.
I know,
like.
just from pictures, right? But you walk into this place, it feels just like the town gathering. There's people of all ages sitting in this place talking. I went in there the first time by myself, just for a late night beverage. Sat at the bar. Granted, language was a barrier. I did not know a word of Japanese, but I mean, you kind of rely on some hand gestures to get going. I sat there for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and then this, I guess, older couple walked into the bar, sat down, 2 seats to the left of me. The gentleman knew a little bit English, so he started asking me some questions, what I was doing there, what I've seen and whatnot. And this sparked a conversation. And I would think I was there probably for, I don't know, maybe a couple hours. She came in a little bit later to find me talking to a couple people. And because he knew enough English to have a conversation, and his wife was able to talk to me, I was able to talk to the barkeeps and ask some questions and just kind of basic things again, but just to have fun. It was great. I think that's my favorite part.
I remember talking to the bartender about American television. Japan is behind on, where we're at in our shows. So I remember the bartender really liked the show Revenge. And the first season was all that was available in Japan. And I was like, oh my god, you're going to be blown away on the second season. Like, he was so excited. That was really fun.
How many seasons are there?
I think they're in their 4th.
All right, so they're about like 2-3 years behind.
Yeah.
Looks like on that show.
So I mean that was cool. And yeah, that couple, they were very nice, very very friendly, very generous. I mean, the lady ran her own shop, and she actually she makes black garlic. And they gave us their card. She gave us a bulb of black garlic.
Garlic, yeah.
And she was wearing this knit shawl. She actually gave it to me before they left as just a gift. Just like we would never have that here.
It sounds like that you did connect a bit more on this trip culturally than you did on your last one. I would love to go in there. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. So I would like to just ask you then, with all these experiences together, everything that you've learned, everything that you've found that you liked and disliked, where do you want to go next and why?
We're still trying to figure that out, where we want to go next. We've talked about Scotland. Where else have we? Kind of Europe.
Yeah, UK, Northern Europe. That area's been on our list for a while too. I think for me, I would love to see, I guess, the land of my ancestors. And I've got English and Scot in the bloodline somewhere, so I kind of want to see what that's like. I've seen pictures of the land, and it just amazes me. I'd love to go check it out. That's still like one of my biggest motivators, just to see the land, the scenery. I love that kind of stuff. But I think that's where we were thinking next. Ultimately, I mean, our big place we'd love to go to.
My place is New Zealand.
I'd like to go there too.
That's my dream, to go there.
Yeah, that's the Mecca. That's top of the list.
For me. But we'll get there eventually.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you guys giving me some of your time so I can learn a bit about other people's motivations and likes and dislikes. And I hope you guys keep traveling.
Cool.
We will.
Definitely will.
Maybe we'll meet up sometime.
Maybe.
Maybe.